You might have heard about that recent aerial clash between Pakistani and Indian fighter jets.
Yeah.
Well, while the immediate focus was maybe local, we want to take a wider look today.
Right, because this event, even though it was, contained,
Yeah.
it gives us a pretty fascinating glimpse into modern air warfare, how things are changing.
Exactly. And it matters way beyond just those two countries. If you're trying to get a handle on, like, the future of conflict, military tech, this is a really key moment to look at.
It really is. For military planners, defense analysts all over the world, this is basically a real-world case study. It's quite rare, actually.
A case study? How so?
Well, you get to see how advanced planes, and maybe even more importantly, these air-to-air missile systems perform in, a live situation.
Hyper pressure.
Exactly. And the insights you get from that, even if they're preliminary, they can have some pretty big implications down the line.
Okay, so let's break it down. What are we actually looking at here? The reports, they seem to be coming from U.S. officials.
That's right. Which is interesting in itself.
And they indicate a Chinese-made Pakistani J-10 fighter reportedly shot down at least 2 Indian aircraft.
Including the French-made Rafale, yeah. So you've got this mix of advanced gear from different global suppliers.
Playing out for real.
And the fact that U.S. sources are the ones commenting, well, that just highlights the bigger strategic picture, doesn't it?
You mean things like Taiwan, the Indo-Pacific?
Precisely. Tensions there mean both China and the U.S. are, let's just say, very interested in any real performance data. It feeds right into their own planning and tech development.
Right. So our deep dive today, the mission is really to unpack this. What are the key things the big military powers are trying to learn right now?
What does it tell us about future defense strategies, about where aircraft tech is heading?
Exactly. We want to give you, especially if you're following international relations, maybe for UPSC exams or just general knowledge, a solid grasp of why this matters globally.
And what's really striking is just how much attention this single fight is getting worldwide.
It's not just India and Pakistan looking closely.
Oh, definitely not. Military organizations everywhere are trying to figure out the tactics, what gear was used, how effective it was, did anything reveal a weakness.
That kind of real test must be invaluable. You can't just simulate everything.
You really can't. And talking about the gear, the specific planes involved, the J-10s.
A Chinese J-10, right. Why is that one significant here?
Well, the J-10 is seen as a pretty big step for China's own aviation industry. It's moving past older Soviet designs, more modern multi-role.
So if it performed well here?
That's seen as kind of a validation of their progress. And then naturally, everyone starts wondering about the weapons it might have been carrying.
Okay. And that brings us to the missiles, doesn't it? There's a lot of chatter, especially online, I think, about China's PL-15 missile possibly going up against the European Meteor missile.
That's the big speculation, yes. And if that did happen...
Why is that matchup such a big deal?
Because it would likely be the first time these two specific missiles, arguably two of the most advanced long-range air-to-air missiles out there, have actually faced each other.
Wow.
Douglas Berry over at ICE, the International Institute for Strategic Studies, he pointed this out. He said there's intense interest in understanding the tactics, techniques, procedures, what kit was used, what worked, and what didn't.
So seeing maybe China's best air-to-air weapon clash with one of the West's best would give you incredibly valuable data, strength, weaknesses, how they actually perform when it counts.
Right. And it's not just about, who won this one dogfight.
Not at all. Think about the intelligence gathering. You can bet France and the European group behind the Rafale Meteor are very keen to hear what India learned. Just like the U.S. and China are probably looking very closely at Pakistan's side of things. How did their systems work?
There was that quote from a defense industry exec, wasn't there? Something about the PL-15.
Yeah, basically saying the PL-15 is a big problem. It is something that the U.S. military pays a lot of attention to. That really underlines the strategic worry about its capabilities, especially that long range people talk about.
It does. And notice how Dassault, who make the Rafale, and MBDA, the Meteor group, they both declined to comment.
Very sensitive stuff then. Commercial implications too, I imagine.
Huge implications. But, while everyone's analyzing behind the scenes, it also shows how much we don't know for sure.
Like what specifically?
Well, Western analysts, industry sources, they point out some big unknowns. Like, was the Meteor missile even on the Indian jets in this fight?
That's a key question, isn't it?
It's fundamental.
Yeah.
If it wasn't there, then, well, any talk about how it stacked up against the PL-15 is just guesswork.
Right.
And beyond that, we don't really know the training levels, the experience of the specific pilots involved.
The human element.
Exactly. A really good pilot can sometimes make up for tech disadvantages. Or, the best gear might not perform well if the pilot isn't fully up to speed. You have to separate the tech from the operation.
It makes me think of that phrase, Byron Callan used it, the fog of war.
Precisely. In the middle of actual combat, getting a totally clear picture is just incredibly hard. So drawing firm conclusions from, limited reports can be risky.
Still, even with all that uncertainty, you mentioned feedback loops earlier.
Yeah, they're almost certainly happening. Think about Ukraine. We know U.S. defense companies are getting constant feedback on how their weapons are doing in the real world.
Okay.
So it's very likely similar information is flowing between India and its European suppliers and between Pakistan and China.
That real-world data must be gold dust for refining things. Tactics, the tech itself.
Absolutely. For China, if these reports of success are accurate, that's a huge data point for them. Did the PL-15 work like they expected? Maybe even better.
That validation is critical for their own development programs.
No doubt. Which brings us back to the sort of technical side of the PL-15 versus the Meteor. There was even that picture floating around online.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
Claimed to be the seeker head from a Meteor missile that missed. No, we can't verify if it's real, obviously.
But it shows the level of interest, the speculation.
It really does. And there's also this whole question about which version of the PL-15 Pakistan might even have.
It's not all the same.
Apparently not. Some think they might have the export version, which probably has a shorter range than the one the Chinese Air Force, the PLA-AF, uses itself. Douglas Berry, whom we mentioned, thinks the export version is more likely.
And would that make a big difference in a fight?
Well, range could be significant. The PLA-AF version is thought to reach further, potentially letting them shoot first from further away. But even the export version is seen as a very capable weapon.
So it's still a threat.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And interestingly, one Western defense source sort of pushed back on the idea that the PL-15, which uses a rocket motor, definitely outranges the Meteor, which breathes air.
Okay.
They acknowledged its capabilities, maybe greater than was thought, but also noted that the Meteor's actual range isn't officially published. So comparing them directly is tricky.
So, despite all the talk and the analysis, we can't definitively say how these systems performed against each other in this specific case.
Not yet, no. Like that industry source said, it's currently not possible to judge anything for certain based on what's public.
But the fact that the PL-15 exists and is out there, that itself is significant, right?
Hugely significant. It's seen as a key sign of how far China has come with its military aviation tech. They're not just copying old stuff anymore. They're developing really advanced systems.
And the West has definitely noticed.
Clearly. Look at the U.S. They're working hard on the AIM-260 missile, the Joint Advanced Tactical Missile. Lockheed Martin's developing it.
And that's a direct response to the PL-15.
It's widely seen that way, yes.
Yeah.
A response to that beyond visual range capability the PL-15 represents. It's all part of this bigger strategic shift, this focus on potential competition with China. If you're tracking international security, that AIM-260 program is one to watch.
What about Europe? Are they upgrading the Meteor?
They are exploring options, yeah. A midlife upgrade, potentially looking at propulsion guidance systems. But the progress seems maybe a bit slow compared to the U.S. effort.
Keeping pace is tough.
It is. And meanwhile, the U.S. Air Force is also pushing ahead with its next-generation fighter jet program. Boeing's working on that.
What's expected there?
Oh, the works. Better stealth, really advanced sensors, new engine technology. It just shows this constant race, this technological competition in air power. And all these developments, they shape defense strategies for decades.
So let's try and wrap this up a bit. To summarize, this air clash, small scale maybe.
Geographically limited, yeah.
But it gives us this really valuable, even if it's still a bit blurry, picture of how air combat tech and tactics are evolving.
And the intense global interest just proves how closely everyone is watching, especially how these advanced missiles perform or might perform.
And for you listening, maybe you're studying for the UPSC exams, tracking international relations, defense trends, or maybe you're just interested in understanding the big global shift.
This event really highlights that constant cycle. Innovation, competition in military tech. It shows how even these seemingly local fights can give us big clues about global trends and what challenges might lie ahead.
Which leads to maybe a final thought for you to mull over.
Yeah, think about this. With these rapid advancements we're seeing in air combat tech, what does that mean for, like, the bigger picture, global power balances, the actual future of how wars might be fought.
What questions does this raise for you? What parts of this, the tech, the strategy, do you find most important or maybe still unclear?
Exactly. We'd genuinely like to hear your perspective on this.
Absolutely. So if you found this deep dive useful, if it helped you connect some dots on current global events, please do give us a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and definitely leave a comment below.
Let us know your thoughts, your questions. It really helps us figure out what topics you want us to tackle next.
Thanks for tuning in.